Okay, in this video, we move from Power Query or data get and transform and to start using the data to answer some questions. And we're going down the path of using Power Query because ultimately what we want to do is create a data model and then use Power Pivot and Power Pivot tables to answer questions and analyze. Now, this is the way that we're going to learn how to do it, but there are other ways. If you didn't know anything about Power Query or the data model or Power Pivot, if you just wanted to stay in classic Microsoft Excel, what you would use, or things we talked about earlier, we would use VLOOKUPs or lookup functions. Now, lookup functions work. Uh, the problem is that they make for really, really slow and large processes, data files and processes. And when you use VLOOKUPs, essentially you're bringing everything in that you need, and that's called flattening your data, which is not best practice. You do not want to do that. What you want to do is something different, which we'll cover in the next video. But what I want to show you in this video is how you would use VLOOKUP if you didn't use Power Query or you didn't use the data model. We'll just use VLOOKUPs. So here's my Food Mart data that we've got. Here's my 1997 transactions. And just as you remember, there's it's a large data set, or reasonably large. It lists every transaction in 1997, ultimately telling me how many were purchased by this person. This is the product they purchased, and this is the store that they purchased. Now, we don't know what those are because we don't have any level of detail. These are just IDs that we have access to. And we've got 86 or so thousand of those. So I've got a real simple question. I want to know what percentage of my 1997 transactions were purchased by customers who had 4 or more children. So that's a classic marketing research question. I want to look at these transactions and want to know, okay, did this particular customer have 4 or more children? Well, how would I get that? And where it comes from is the customer lookup table. So we have, another thing that we have access to is the customer lookup. So we have in column A the customer ID. And there's exactly one of these for every customer. So this customer is unique to this one. And here's their names and all this information that we've got. But if you look over in this column, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. The 14th column, it tells me the total number of children. So what I want to do is go down here to customer ID 3449, 3449. So I want to scroll down to that customer. I'll get to it in a minute. 3449, which is Lana Weiss, and I see that she has 2 children. So I don't want to count her. I just want to know what percentage have total of 4 or more. Well, how am I going to do that? Well, if I don't have any skills other than VLOOKUPs, that's what I'm going to use. Let's use a VLOOKUP. Equals VLOOKUP. I want to look up this value in this data set over here. I'll get to it in a minute. There you go. These are and I'm going to look it up in the 14th column, and I want an exact match. I don't want something close. I want an exact match, so I'm going to put false or 0. And I'm going to, you see it's got $signs, so that's good. So there you go. There's the 2 children that Lana has. I'm going to copy this formula down. It already has $signs over my table references, so that's great. I just copy this down. And boom, just like that, I have now pulled over total children into my transaction table. And now I can go do a pivot. Let's go put it, and I'm just going to put it right here on this worksheet. Make this a little bit bigger. And let's bring over total children like this. And let's do a count of those. So I'm going to bring this over, and remember, this is a sum. We don't want to sum it, we want to count it. So you can see that of my 86,000 transactions, if I add up this plus this, 17,000 plus 8,600, and divide by that, that would be my total percentage. That's 4 or more. And I could probably show this as show values as percent of column total. There you go. So it looks like it's about 30%. 30%. Whoops. I can build a graph, maybe put a pie chart out there let's do a pie like that. There you go. And I can look at my 4 and 5, which is blue and gray. I don't know why they split them up like that, but there's my, or excuse me, green. So there's 4 and 5. So add those up. Add those up, 30%, there's your answer. About 30% have 4 or more children. So that's my question. I've got that answered. About 30%, which is a lot more than I thought it would be. It's really interesting. Well, okay. What if I want to ask another question, though? What if I want to ask another question that has nothing to do with children, but it's an equally important question? What if I want to know, let's just look at this data file, homeowner, or what their occupation is, or how much money they make? Well, then that means I got to build a VLOOKUP for every one of these. I would have to go over to my transactions and just keep adding columns for every one of these data sets. I would want to bring over every column so I could do questions, but that's just for the customer. Now let's look at, what about product stuff? What if I wanted to ask questions that were product related? Well, that's more columns. So this file could, right now only has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 columns. I would probably have to get this to 100 columns and have everything in here. And that's just bloated, it's flattening, it's putting everything in a single file, and I've got all of these VLOOKUPs that will exist. And I promise you, when you add all these VLOOKUPs, this file will get slower and slower and slower. When you open it, when you try to do any calculations, anything, it will bog down. So VLOOKUPs, even though they work, are not the way to do things, especially when you have larger data sets. So the next video, we're going to learn how to use the data model within Excel. And what that means is we've got a little database lingo that we've got to talk about, and specifically we need to talk about something called one-to-many relationships. We need to build relationships between our lookup tables, which are the ones, and our transaction tables, which are the many. A one means that that particular field of a data set, that particular file occurs exactly once. So when we're looking at our customer lookup, this is clearly one of the one relationships, because this customer ID 8 does not occur ever again in this column. Now in our transaction table, our transactions, we might see 8 a whole bunch of times. Just like this particular this customer ID, we saw it at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, that's fine. It can occur many times. But in our lookup table, where we're looking up the data, that ID has to occur exactly 1 time. Hence, we have one-to-many relationships. And the next video will show you how we'll build those within the data model. Thanks.